Okay, so who has never been to a Atlanta blockchain meetup before? All right, thank you so much for coming today. We've been running these for a couple of years now. First thing we do is like to go over the sponsors. Sponsors help pay for everything. Speakers flying in, their hotels, food and drinks. So the sponsors are really what makes this possible to make this even better. So I want to cover all the sponsors real quick. First one is Hide.me. They're a VPN service that accepts cryptocurrency as one of their payment options. So you can actually be more anonymous when you use your VPN service. You don't have to tie a credit card to your VPN. So I highly recommend them. I've been using them for years, and they're pretty good. They have servers all over. I want to also thank Javi. Is anyone Javi here? Anybody? So they're up and coming wallet service that's going to provide all kinds of things. I believe they're going to launch pretty soon, and Brandon's running that. It's going to be pretty awesome. There's going to be more information on that later on. So they're helping out and sponsoring the group for now. HPV, this is going to be like a public blockchain that uses specialized hardware for high transaction throughput. This is a fairly interesting idea. They're actually going to give a presentation next month, and we're just going to kind of see what they have to say and evaluate what's going on with them. I think that's going to be kind of interesting. They're actually going to be flying in from China, so that's going to be an interesting presentation next month. We have Bitcoin Depot. I don't think anyone from Bitcoin Depot here, but they have a lot of Bitcoin ATMs in the Atlanta area. I think the most out of like any U.S. Bitcoin company that I know of. They have like 80 or 90 Bitcoin ATMs. They have like 50 or so in Atlanta. If you Google Bitcoin ATM radar, you can see their Bitcoin ATMs everywhere. Gino's Barber, it's a barber shop in Sandy Springs. They actually accept Bitcoin as payment. They'll give you like a 10% discount if you pay in Bitcoin. They also accept Bitcoin Cash and other cryptocurrencies. Founders Legal and Carlton Fields are our two legal sponsors. Both give service with laws, regulation, anything having to do with cryptocurrency. They can give advice. I recommend reaching out to both of them if you're doing anything that's involved with legality in the cryptocurrency space. We got Edge, so they're our official wallet sponsor, and they support a plethora of different altcoins as well as Bitcoin, and check them out. And we have Protecting Coin, and at the very end, if you got a little red ticket, we're doing a raffle later, and they're our hardware sponsor. And Tyrion, the company I work for, we take data from outside the Bitcoin blockchain and we put it in the Bitcoin blockchain for you for free. So we do this anchoring feature where we can prove when data existed and then the integrity of it. So it's a unique way of time-stamping data. If you're interested in that, if you're a developer, let me know. There's open APIs, or if you just think of a use case, you can reach out. We can explore that together. All right, and last but not least, Atlanta Tech Village for letting us use this space. Thank you so much. Round of applause. Thank you. Another one of our sponsors is a blockchain.conf.tech, which is running a blockchain conference. It is particular. Yeah, right here. Oh, right in front of me. I actually didn't see it. I'll give it my pen.
Good evening, everyone. We're putting on a technology-focused blockchain conference coming up on September 6th and 7th, just like it says up here. I'm going to flip to the next slide real quick. Oh, thank you. You have your remote. There you go. We have a bunch of great speakers already lined up. We have one of the CTOs for Hyperledger, for example, and a competing blockchain architecture, which is being built by Microsoft. Their chief architect is going to be here. Stephen Perry, who some of you may know, he's the CEO of some company called Just checking. And we even have some local yokels like Michael Tidwell speaking. So we have a mix of some local blockchain experts and a mix of people from outside of Atlanta coming. So please check it out. We're currently in kind of the early bird stage for tickets, and there are flyers up front so that you can remind yourself that it's coming up again. It's September 6th through 7th. So please check it out. We're expecting a sellout this year. Because blockchain is what's hot right now, right?
Cool.
There you go. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Pratik. Just to let you know, we try to get out of here by 8. We like to go to Twin Peaks because it's right next door. If If you have an engaging conversation, I just want to let you know, I don't want you to stop talking, but I might kick you out, and I just want you to go to Twin Peaks, and I'll actually meet you there, and we'll get some more drinks and chat about blockchain and stuff. So please just be mindful that we need to leave around 8 o'clock. And also, make sure you pick up your trash before you leave. That would mean a lot to me. Thank you. I also want to give a shout out to the Atlanta Bitcoin Embassy. Hey. We already covered Gino's barber. There's the man right there.
No, I got an announcement.
Go make an announcement real quick.
There he is.
Hello. So, how many people have spent Bitcoin in the past 30 days? Or cash, or Monero, or something. What was the average fee that you guys paid? Just shout it out.
2 cents.
3 cents. 1 cent.
Pretty good. So, we have the pleasure of paying Visa, MasterCard around $1 for every freaking haircut that we service. And I'm here to tell you, I'm just fucking sick of it.
Yeah.
So, let's help make some magic happen, because I've got better ways to spend tens of thousands of dollars. I think Visa and MasterCard made plenty of money during their last earnings announcement, so it's enough. It's enough. How many people have hair on their heads or faces? Great. Let's make some magic. We're opening a new location in Buckhead, about a quarter-mile away. Anyone know where the New York Prime Steakhouse is? Right behind the Ritz-Carlton, or the new Whitley Hotel. So we're in that building, make an appointment, come see the best barbers around, I would say. Right?
I need
Good. So
I need to go back for a fresh one.
come on over, spend some crypto, let's have some conversation. We're hopefully going to get a Bitcoin ATM in the shop, so let's talk, all right? But know that every haircut is getting us closer to making some magic happen, okay?
Speaking of which, I need to get a haircut pretty soon, so I'll have to head over there. As I was before, Atlanta Bitcoin Embassy, this is a place that we have near Midtown. Just Google the Atlanta Bitcoin Embassy. You'll find us. You can go to our website, atlembassy.org, and make an appointment. Just come hang out. We're in a WeWork, second floor. This is a kind of open environment where you can come bring your laptop, work for the day, ask some light questions. You know, nothing too serious we're working to, but just come hang out with some blockchain and Bitcoin people. We also have a Bitcoin ATM in there, and we can show you how to use it and stuff like that. And I'd also like to say, on our Meetup group, we have over 3,000 members now that are RSVP'd. So thank you for being part of that, and thank you to everyone who supported us, and thank you for the leadership, Randy, Brandon, who I mentioned, Rich as well, everybody. So Peter, Scott, thank you so much for making this possible. I'm sure I forgot everyone. Just looking at the front couple rows. So thank you so much for everything, because this has been awesome to help host these things with you guys.
Thanks for the beer. Beer mix.
Hours for the embassy are going to be probably like 9 to 6 or 7. I would say make an appointment ahead of time to make sure we're in the office. Yeah. Okay. And now for the feature presentation. We have Dan Anderson flying in from New York City to talk to us about Counterparty and tokens on Bitcoin, and a little bit of just about everything with tokens. So he is an expert in the field. He's been in the space since 2011 and has verifiable proof of it, unlike some people who say they've been in the space for a long time and have no proof. Dan Anderson has been doing some really cool stuff, and I'll just leave it to him to give his presentation. Thank you so much. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, guys. My name is Dan. Nice to meet you. I was me dabbing on. It's a thing now. Think about it. Alright, so anyways, I'm from New York City. Usually in New York City, I go to It NYC. If you're ever in New York City, you should totally go. But that's the format I'm used to, which is often, we call it Socratic Meetup format. So like that format, if you have a question, call out, we can stop the presentation, have a discussion. See something, want to talk about it, feel free to stop me, but let's just get into it. And as a disclosure, I own Bitcoin, I own Counterparty, and other cryptocurrencies. Basically assume if I'm talking about it, I have an active trading position in it, just so we cover all the bases. Don't trust, verify, so you guys are familiar with this phrase, but everything I say today, like, don't trust me, look into it for yourself. But a lot of people have heard this phrase, but how many people have heard this phrase? Okay, a lot of people balk at it because they say, like, normal people can't actually verify, they do have to trust somebody, they have to outsource their thinking. But I would say take this more of a challenge. You know, if you're here, you have the interest, the incentive, the time, maybe to learn a bit more. I know that Michael has some workshops you do, is that right?
Next one tentatively is July 21st.
So I would just highly recommend giving it a shot. Like, don't just outsource your thinking to other people like you in front of the room. I'm going to do some polling. I know this is lame, but it's a lot of fun, right? So how many people here have heard of Counterparty? Ethereum, colored coins, old school, protocol. Sorry, I'm also from New York City, so it's a little bit of a stand-up routine that you get as well. Any non-conformists, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. So you might be wondering who I am, what I do, and this one explain briefly that I'm a Counterparty developer, so Counterparty's been something that's been active on the Bitcoin chain since 2014. So I'm sort of a recent addition to the developer team there, but what it does and what it allows you to do is create assets on the Bitcoin blockchain rather than some other chain. And that's me. You're like, yeah. Obviously, I'm not very media trained. I did not prepare this presentation very well. Michael's already regretted it, but thank you for everybody. All right, so basically what Counterparty is a protocol and software for the permissionless creation and exchange of crypto assets using Bitcoin. So let's break that down. One of the things I want to point out to you is that it doesn't say it's blockchain. Counterparty is not a blockchain. It's a ledger. That's probably one of the reasons you might not have heard of it, because it is not a blockchain. So it doesn't have the hype. Rather, what Counterparty does is it tries to utilize the permissionless features of the Bitcoin network to use it in a new way, a different layer on top of it. And so the other word I want to point out here is crypto assets. You guys have heard this word, crypto assets. It's kind of like a new buzzword of sorts. Sometimes people get confused in the community that I'm in when we start saying assets. But just so you understand what I mean when I talk about an asset, I just mean something that you own that has market value. Very abstract concept, it's very general. But what that looks like in these protocols, not just Counterparty, I'm going to talk generally for a second, because there are more than one asset protocol in the blockchain space, but at the protocol level, what that looks generally like is some name associated with some other integer. I know that's very abstract, but it's also very extensible, and that's what makes these things apply to a lot of different use cases. So, Counterparty, for example, XCP is associated with an issuance as a cryptocurrency. Apple associated with 4.9 billion shares, that's an equity. So, at a very abstract protocol level, we're just talking about unique identifiers and a number of shares. Other examples of crypto assets could be like a ticket. So, the TAB conference, for example, could have a token for their tickets. But all of these at the technological level are identical. How they're defined depends on how they're used. We call these user-defined assets. You have a collectible, you can find something, a rare card, you guys heard of Rare Pepe or Crypto Kitties, like these concepts, they all apply here. in-game currencies. And I just want to show you, I'm just going over briefly the different types of assets because how they're used matters. There's some people tend to think that anything on a blockchain is security, necessarily. I'm not a lawyer, but like, not every piece of paper with a number written on it is money. So, how you use these things matters. I'm going to come back to the different uses on the counterparty in particular. But like, if we think generally about assets on blockchain, things you might want in a network that stores your asset ownership data. You know, you want to own it, you want to have it, you don't want it to go away, you don't want someone to take it. You want security, don't get robbed. Can you agree on that? You want immutability. You don't want someone to change your balances willy-nilly. Don't want that. You want them to be available. Right? You don't want downtime. You want persistence. You want them to exist into the future. You know, like, you own a home, how long do you expect to own a home? It's an asset. A long time. You own stocks. How long do you intend to hold them? Quite a long time. Sorry, pardon me. I know I'm saying like basic things, but I feel like it's required in a way because sometimes we lose perspective when we think about blockchain and stuff. Like a lot of it's really basic, but we think about you go ahead and check and it's like, ah. And so Counterparty is built on Bitcoin because we're concerned about these different things, you know, like security, we're worried about it, immutability, we're worried about it. These are all very hard tasks. Individually, they're all very difficult. So tackle them all at once. It's kind of like ludicrous. And often when people create new blockchains, they take them all at once, and it's very brave of them. But what Counterparty decided to do instead is to outsource to the Bitcoin blockchain a lot of these concepts. So this is a chart of the Bitcoin hash rate across 10 years. And so you use Bitcoin because it's secure and it's immutable. Would you like to talk about how it's not secure? Yeah, like, no. Yeah. I thought you were saying that Bitcoin's not secure.
No, I
Oh, I'm sorry. Alright. But I am looking for audience participation if you have any questions or want to jump in. But like, let's check this out. You guys familiar with this chart? This is not the price, this is hash rate. So what this is a measure of essentially demand for mining Bitcoin. So when Counterparty was created, it was right here. And at this point in time, the idea was that Bitcoin's probably going to win. Let's just build on top of it. Solid foundation. Let's do that. Ethereum was founded around here, I think. Right? Yeah, 2013. And so I just love that chart. Because I think a lot of projects nowadays want you to, don't look at the hash rate, don't look at the security. We'll figure it out with perpetual motion POS. And then
What is POS?
Oh, POS is proof of stake. It's out of scope, but we can get into it if you want. But I think proof of stake is probably like something for nothing. It's like nothing to stake problem. It's like a perpetual motion machine. What I like about proof of work is that there's like an external input and cost you bear. You don't bear with proof of stake. Pardon?
repeat that sentence.
And the other thing we select the Bitcoin network for is it's globally available. It's been around longer than any other blockchain, so like in terms of persistence, sure, like that. And it's permissionless. A lot of people don't prefer Counterparty because we write our data into the Bitcoin blockchain. Some developers consider that spam. To a degree, they're correct. But also to a degree, it doesn't matter what they think. Because Bitcoin has a permissionless property, which is like one of its biggest selling points. You can use Bitcoin, and no one can tell you, like, oh, you can't use it that way. If that ever happens, like it's broken. So in a way, we stress test Bitcoin a little bit. And we're not the only ones doing this. So there's actually multiple protocols that are writing data into the Bitcoin blockchain and utilizing the network that already exists there. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, rather just make incremental improvements and make other uses of it. So these are asset protocols. Here is notaries like time stamping, digital art, stuff like that. You might be like, oh, but Bitcoin has fees. And you're correct. So this chart here is the average transaction fee paid by counterparty users per month over time. So going back to 2014 to today, so there was a huge spike in December. I'm sure if you guys were using the Bitcoin during that time, like you experienced these high fees. You are familiar with this? But I think there was a great deal of FUD around this, but a great lack of celebration about this. Fees are on the ground again. So another nice thing about for building on top of Bitcoin, aside from all these things we've been talking about, or I've been talking about, is that upstream, the developers are making extreme advancements all the time. It's hard to keep up with Bitcoin. So this is another reason we choose Bitcoin. I just show this just to remind people that fees are down on Bitcoin. And I also, it's my own personal belief that the fees are worth paying. Another thing that protocols that develop on top of Bitcoin can do is, it's not like fees are, for some people who aren't thinking long term, like the fees are a surprise. But if you know about the fees, you can do things to mitigate them. So what this is a chart of is the average transaction size of a counterparty transaction. So a counterparty transaction is a Bitcoin transaction with a little bit of extra data. And so you can see we went from about 400 bytes per transaction down to 240. And that's just through engineering and trying to save space. If a transaction is smaller, you have to pay less to get it into the block code.
Thank you. What caused the fees?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's a lot of answers to it. At the time of highest fees, Bitcoin was also at its all-time high, so you could see that there might be for people to get their transaction to or from exchanges quicker. Some people claim that there was spam attacks happening on the network, where people are creating garbage transactions. Any other reason people have?
Demand exceeded capacity.
Well, this is a good point. The fees are market-based. There's no piece of code that says the price is this. Block producers optimize for maximum fees, and if they fill the blocks and there's still demand for block space, that's going to keep the fee higher.
How to prevent it from continuing, not jeopardizing the liberty of Bitcoin? How do we keep it?
Well, to some degree, in the short term, there are solutions like Lightning and Segwit, which address fees. Lightning seeks to do more things off-chain, so there's maybe less demand for block space. But in the long run, it's important to remember that the Bitcoin block subsidy will basically go to zero. At some point, the network security will have to be supported by transactions. So to a degree, these are
If the Bitcoin network is more scalable, it's a way to solve. Do you back Counterparty?
That's a good question. Yeah, wait, there I didn't hear what you said. You said, are we using Segwit transactions right now on a counterparty? And the answer is that it's not supported fully, but some people have done it. There are some issues and that basically it's not fully supported. But a big reason, one of the things about Counterparty people say is that, and it's true to a degree, that it hasn't kept up to date with the latest Bitcoin. It's true to a degree. But because Counterparty works differently than Bitcoin, how it scales and what it needs to optimize for are different. So, for example, one of the things we're going to do is allow you to, one Bitcoin transaction, do multiple Counterparty transactions. So we could have one transaction do 100 or 1,000 things, whereas SegWit will save us maybe, the savings will be a lot less for us in our particular use case. However, I am involved with developer meetings where it's a big concern of ours to support SegWit because of the way that Bitcoin's used. But to some degree as well, if we do support SegWit, we're kind of grandfathered in on a different type of address because that's like how everyone's account is. So they'll have to sort of transfer all of their assets. So we're also looking to improvements where you could maybe do a command like transfer everything to this address to that address, so you can migrate to SegWit. But if they're not, they're theoretical. That's a good question. Getting a little ahead of the presentation though. All right, so what I'm going to demonstrate for you now is I'm going to try to show you how protocols that use the offer term inside of Bitcoin work. So this is going to be generalized more than just Counterparty, but I'm going to try to visualize it for you. All right, so let's start with Bitcoin. We talked about Bitcoin a little bit, talked about Counterparty briefly. I'm sure you're still confused a little bit, but I'm going to talk about how the network layers over Bitcoin. So the way that I understand Bitcoin is that it's a protocol, there's a software to implement that protocol, but then it requires a peer-to-peer network. And out of that, you get a currency. And there's more to it, sure. This might be a review for some people, but I'm going to, in a very simplified way, show you how Bitcoin works in a very simplified way. So imagine each of these blocks is a computer running the Bitcoin software. These numbers represent the different versions of software they're running. And these lines represent sort of like the network of these computers. All right, so let's just call that the Bitcoin network. Very simplified. Don't crucify me for it. You like the jokes. All right, and so these nodes are chattering around data. And basically, through the normal operation of this network, the blockchain progresses. This is generally, at a very simplified level, how Bitcoins work and how blockchains work. At a very simplified level. Now, Counterparty, it's different than Bitcoin in that, yes, it's a protocol, yes, it's a software implementation of that protocol, but it's not a peer-to-peer network. Very important. It's not a peer-to-peer network, which makes it different from things like Lightning or sidechains, which would have a peer-to-peer network component. We basically just don't bother with that because we just use Bitcoin for that. In a lot of cases, when you're interacting with Counterparty, you're interacting with Bitcoin. You're using Bitcoin addresses, you're making Bitcoin transactions, you're running a Bitcoin node. And so here is how Counterparty does its thing. Essentially, we take a Bitcoin full node and we add the Counterparty software to it, like a patch or a plugin or an add-on. So now we have a Counterparty full node. It's a participant in the Bitcoin network, but it's also running software that allows it to examine Bitcoin transactions, see that it's a Counterparty transaction, and maintain a ledger specific to Counterparty. So derived from the Bitcoin blockchain, we create the Counterparty ledger. So these represent like transactions that are Bitcoin transactions, but they also contain a little bit of Counterparty. And these other nodes not running Counterparty, they see these transactions fine. They just aren't aware of we're applying validation to the counterparty data within it. And so now, through the normal operation of Bitcoin, as it progresses, the counterparty ledger also progresses. And so this is how the counterparty network works and operates at a very simplified level. I'm sure I've lost many of you. I hope some of you learned something from that. If you want to talk more about it at a technical level, you should definitely come at me. Don't come at me, bro. Come up to me, say hello, and how are you doing? I'll say hi. All right.
What makes? Hey, you want
What makes the counterparty transaction different? Like the actual transaction.
Perfect. Perfect segue. Flawless segue. Thank you. And so similarly to what we just saw, okay, gentlemen, here was a question.
Yeah, say you have 400 nodes on the blockchain. How many of those, like what kind of, how distributed is it?
I have a lot of charts at the end of this presentation that will look at exactly the adoption levels and usage levels. So if I can kick the can on that, I will come back to it with part of it. Yeah, sure, why not?
Mine is simple. Why? Why do you even need a parallel chain on top of existing block? Because now you have to worry about nuances of the blockchain to replicate that. I just, why do you?
Okay, yeah, it's a good question. And so essentially, the reason Counterparty exists is that the developers and the founders that created it were looking at this network where we have a currency, a monetary system. You can think of Bitcoin maybe as like a monetary policy. And they were more interested in finance, or like what you do with money. And the problem, not a problem, but basically, Bitcoin's not set up to do things like contracts for different, for example. It's not set up to do decentralized atomic swaps. And these are things that are enabled by Counterparty. So, if that makes sense, basically think of Bitcoin as money, Counterparty's like, okay, how do we do finance with this money? That's how I think of it. But the segue, we lost the momentum of the segue, but I'm bringing it back. Alright, so this is another simplified, I hope, but I want to try to demonstrate to you how the data is going across the network in Counterparty in the Bitcoin transaction. So basically, we generate a Bitcoin transaction, totally normal Bitcoin transaction, except we write metadata into the op return, it's called. So if you guys know, Bitcoin has what's called script, and there's different opcodes. One of these opcodes is called op return. And essentially what it lets you do, the thing that we're concerned about is this output here. Like that animation of like a touch. So what's going on here is that in Bitcoin you have outputs from previous transactions become inputs, or they fund the transaction. And within the transaction it defines future outputs that can be used as inputs again. And so the Bitcoin blockchain is basically just like web of long chains of transaction history. But in op return, what you do is you create an output, which is part of the blockchain, but it's provably prunable. It's provably unspendable. Basically, an op return output is to no one, and it's no one. It's just a way to store data into the blockchain. And for that reason, it's kind of controversial because it's not necessarily it's not really transaction data necessarily. It's not essential to the operation work.
I have a question. But you can put op return on any Bitcoin transaction, not just a zero Bitcoin spend, right?
Well, no, you misunderstand me. The reason is that it's not usable as an input. That's the definition of like the op return.
Sure, but can't op return be added to any Bitcoin transaction. It's just a
Yeah,
piece
of course. Yeah, this is a normal transaction, and just one of the outputs happens to be.
But even the output with Bitcoin on it can also have operation on it. Is that correct?
I don't really understand the question.
I'll ask.
Did you understand it?
No. So the outputs, the arrows going out, that's the Bitcoin transaction. You're just saying that the upper term is a separate part of it. So you can include Bitcoin. It's going to go again.
Yeah.
It's like an empty UTXO. It's like an empty
Got it.
UTXO, but can't that UTXO also contain Bitcoin in it and an op return message? Can it return both or no? I don't know.
You got it, but then you lost it.
Okay, so no. The answer is no.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the reason that, this is kind of a compromise with Bitcoin developers. Essentially, the reason they prefer this method is that when you're running a Bitcoin full node, you need to keep in memory the UTXO set, which is all the transactions that have never been spent, basically with Bitcoin in circulation. But you can ignore or prune these particular outputs, which saves you a little bit on your. I just want to talk about like why Counterparty is called Counterparty. So that's a technical bit. Maybe, and I just want to talk about why it's called Counterparty. It's like Ethereum, it seems to be just called Ethereum because it's like a cool name. But Counterparty is called Counterparty for a very particular reason. It's trying to describe like what it does. So the idea is that in a transaction, if you want to escrow value, you need to have a trusted intermediary. And with Counterparty, the idea is that we will use the network as our trusted intermediary, trustless, whatever you want to say, and no longer have that human issue there. I just bring that up because smart contract was not a popular phrase when Counterparty was launched. So they picked a name that kind of was descriptive, but I mean, this was before smart contracts was like popping. This is just a little bit of a history lesson right here. Is Mastercoin is sort of like the OG. It's now known as Omni. You guys heard of Omni? Have you heard of Tether? Who's heard of Tether? Okay. So Tether is a token on the Omni platform, which works almost identical to Counterparty. It's just a different protocol. And from my own research, it seems that Tether might be like the only thing really substantial on Omni. So that's July 2013. The Counterparty here in January of 2014. Ethereum in July 2015. Vitalik, we've all heard of Vitalik, praise Vitalik, praise Vitalik. Here he is saying that the earliest versions of the Ethereum protocol were a counterparty style metacoin on top of Primecoin, not Bitcoin, because the arbitrary wars were happening at that time, which is true. 2014 was a big debate whether or not we should have basically arbitrary data to Bitcoin transactions. But there was a compromise and it exists. And I don't know if you've noticed, but it's very difficult to change Bitcoin. So while some people would like it not to be there, it is there. Permissionlessness. Oh, this is important too. I want to talk about this. So, a big difference between Counterparty and Ethereum, because they both do tokens, right? I mean, everyone knows Ethereum for the tokens on ERC20 tokens. Everyone's familiar? Anyone not familiar with ERC20 tokens? Okay, so Ethereum is a different blockchain from Bitcoin that lets you do a very similar thing where you issue a name which has some integer associated with it and therefore can be traded. But the difference with Ethereum is that they have user-defined smart contracts. So you can think of Ethereum as featureless. There's no features, you have to code them. And the problem with that seems to be it's sort of like rolling your own crypto in a way. So you can have situations like this where people assume the multi-sig will work, and then oopsie-poopsie, like maybe we shouldn't put $100 million in that smart contract. With Counterparty, we have smart contracts, but they're not user-defined. It's more consensus defined, where if we want to add new features, we can, but it's a long process. And so we basically have like an opinionated feature full protocol versus a sort of generalized featureless protocol. So they're different. These are the different things that happen within the counterparty nodes. So most of the time, what the federated nodes are doing, do you remember that diagram I showed you where there was like servers and some of them are counterparty servers? So what those servers are doing is they're reading from the Bitcoin blockchain commands with data to execute those commands. But the execution happens off-chain inside the nodes. This chart represents what they're doing like the majority of the time. Most of it, they're just debiting and crediting balances. That makes sense, right? But that's most of what smart contracts are doing in general, is they're just tracking balances. They're just adding, subtracting, moving. It's not as crazy as it seems.
Think about it. Is there any,
Really good question. Similar to Bitcoin nodes, but there's no mining. Oh, I'm sorry. He was asking, is there any economic incentive to run a counterparty node? The answer is no. So usually what you find is that it's businesses that are using counterparty that will run nodes, and maybe they'll expose, like there's wallets, maybe they'll expose the API point. There's not. There's no mining in counterparty. There is a currency that was created, but the way it was created is actually rather interesting. It's not part of this presentation, unfortunately. Maybe I rushed the presentation a little bit. But in 2014, we did a burn. Have you guys ever heard of a proof of burn? So what happened basically, it's really interesting actually. In January 2014, the people that created Counterparty, and this is how ERC20 tokens work as well. Basically, Bitcoin is not aware of the counterparty protocol. So we need to create a currency that is, so we can escrow that currency. So we can do things that you can't do with Bitcoin. Similarly, on Ethereum, you can't just actually trade ERC20 tokens directly with Ethereum, because Ethereum is not aware of the ERC20 token. What you have to do is deposit your Ethereum into a smart contract to get ERC20 aware Ethereum. So in a lot of ways, these ERC20 tokens are like reading the counterparty on Ethereum, which is fine. That's how I do it. And so what we did is a burn to create this currency. Basically, people sent 2,100 Bitcoin to an address that provably unspendable. They just burned it, it's gone. And the federated nodes updated those people's balances with counterparty. What's interesting about the proof of burn concept is it's like similar to proof of work in that you basically proved that you've suffered some cost. We can all agree that you did. And so we can agree on the supply of the currency, which is fixed at 2.6 million, and it's actually deflationary because XCP uses gas as well. So that's a long answer to your question.
So when you burn, is that new created currency, does that maintain the value at the time of the burn from then on, or does it?
No, it's a floating thing. It's not like a peg. Some people call it a one-way peg, but it's just like whatever the market rate is. Yeah. Yeah, it was like a 1 month long creation event. Now it's a floating market price. A lot of the, I'm really interested in sidechain. I don't know if you hear about sidechain, but one of the biggest issues that they have is what they call a peg or the two-way. And it's like trying to, fix these prices. This is almost an elegant solution where it's like the old market price. This here, the gentleman that asked about usage and data, I'm going to show some of that now. If anyone has any questions, I'm going to show some data. I'm going to wrap it up and then we can go with more questions. But this is counterparty transactions over time. Each dot is a month. So this is the blue is monthly, the gray is cumulative. So about 1.4 million Bitcoin transactions are actually counterparty transactions. Not much more to say about it, just like there it is. What this shows you is what percentage of Bitcoin transactions in blocks are actually counterparty transactions. So it hovers between I guess 0 and 1, which isn't significant. Just like 0 and 1. But 1% of Bitcoin is it's Bitcoin. It's pretty impressive to me. This here shows you, since Counterparty was launched, what percentage of Bitcoin blocks had at least one counterparty transaction. So you can see here it's like a majority, but it's not always, but maybe 2 out of 3 blocks will have counterparty. So for me, this shows a consistency of use. Also, by the way, this is all data that I crunched. My website here is counterpartyfox.com. It's an explorer that I made. Kind of one of the reasons Michael invited me here. I was showing these charts. No one's really crunched this data. What this shows is active counterparty assets. So about 70,000 assets have been registered using the Counterparty protocol, but they're not all used. So what this looks at is, within a given month, how many assets had at least one balance change? 1 cent, 1 order, 1 withdrawal, whatever. And you can see it's, is there a trend line there? Maybe, I don't know. But it's between 1,000, 2,000 a month, sometimes 3,000. And most of the people in this room have never heard of it, which is all good. There's around 70,000, but a lot of them are for example, he asked how many assets are there. So in total it's around 70,000, but there's a lot of asset squatters in terms of crypto miner can around 5 building up and hopes to go buy later. I'm one of those people. Active counterparty addresses. So this is similar to the last stat. This just looks at in a given month how many addresses interacted or had a balance change. So it's around 10,000, 20,000. And these numbers compared to other things are not ridiculous. Obviously they don't want to go exponential, but I'm here to show it to you. I think it's interesting. This is DEX orders. So the counterparty DEX is basically our decentralized exchange. One of the cool things about Counterparty is you can issue an asset really quickly, and it's instantly tradable. And I think that feature, especially for people who don't have a lot of resources, is interesting. That's the end of the slides, and maybe a good time to stop if anyone has any questions. There's some points I might go and diatribe them all as well.
So if Ethereum was based on Counterparty, do you have any personal theories as to why Ethereum has taken over as the primary token generation platform?
Cool, yeah. So it's not based on Counterparty. It's initially conceptions were, and then he was like, okay, how many features do we want? And he was like, what if we just get rid of features? And that's where it comes out of. But one of the problems with Counterparty is that, like I said, they did a burn. What that means is that the founders didn't make any money for creating. So the marketing budget was 0. I think Ethereum is wonderful in their marketing. I think they have a lot of liquidity, but I also think that building on it is maybe sort of like a castle thing.
I just want to ask, do you have any idea what the current user base is? Back in the day, 2014, 2015, I downloaded Counterparty. I never really did anything with it, and I was disappointed. Current user.
Sure. So this is active Counterparty addresses per month. It obviously doesn't directly correlate to people, but I mean, you can't really get those numbers either. So we're seeing here between 5,000, 10,000 a month active addresses. I would say I don't know. I guess that's all I would say is.
Maybe he'll show you some use cases that he made later.
Yeah, sure.
That is, how much does it cost? Because I know there's different gas, the Bitcoin, and they change. So how much does average cost for that transaction?
Sure. So outside of this presentation, I actually have a chart that shows gas fees. But essentially, there's two things that Counterparty is used for within the network: is to register assets with names and to issue dividend. It's a very cool feature of Counterparty. You can actually, with one Bitcoin transaction, you can credit everyone holding that asset. So, for example, recently there was a dividend on a token called Bitcrystal, which has 8,000 holders. So, with one Bitcoin transaction, 8,000 balances are affected. So that's also one of my things that would push back about people who are like, oh, it's on chain, but it's like, a lot also. It's off chain. Based on my research around every one effect on chain, about 4 things happen off. But in terms of cost, right now it costs $8 per Counterparty token, and to register an asset is half of a Counterparty token. So it costs $4 US dollars to register a Counterparty asset.
So we have brokers for the space or the
Sure, yeah. There's 2 features, like there is the DEX, which wouldn't be a broker, that would just be the software doing trades. But you could definitely be a middleman with cents, and definitely. And something like 70% of Counterparty on exchanges anyways.
So you mentioned that Bitcoin nodes. Does that affect the ability to all, and you know kind of how many what nodes are not storing Counterparty?
No on the last one, but so basically the way I see it is op returns made to be pruned from your memory. And I think, in my own opinion, it doesn't make sense to make like Swiss cheese of your blockchain for the disk space that's there. So Counterparty transactions, not the op return, but the whole transaction size in total is around 400 megabytes. So it's a small part of the blockchain. And maybe you know more than me, but like, I think those transactions are part of, those outputs are part of the transaction which affect the hashes and validation. I really think it doesn't make sense to, like I said, make Swiss cheese of your history. But it does make sense to print it from your memory in each GXO set. It also doesn't matter necessarily what other nodes are doing. It matters what your node does. I would also say that as well.
Yeah, question, like, we recently released sub-assets. Sub-assets going to take you're going to write more Counterparty?
This is a good question. So there are sub-assets in Counterparty. You can have an asset and then put a period after it and have like a subdomain, basically. And the uptake on those has been very small. There's only around 300 of those registered. And the reason I think that is so is because sub-assets are only useful to people that already own an asset. And so, because there's only 70,000 assets registered, you can usually find like something that's not a sub-asset available as well. It's a good question. He knows Counterparty.
So maybe, just curious if you want to show some actual projects that are using Counterparty.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
And maybe that would make more questions, or we can wrap.
Yeah, definitely. One more point. The reason I like Counterparty is because it has some adoption and use. It's not perfect, but there's a lot of people in the blockchain space that love the perfect to the enemy of the good, and assume because something is technically perfect, it will be adopted. It's not always so. I come from the school of maybe worse is better in terms of protocol development. Google that worse is better. I'm rolling back the chain. All right, so some of the projects that use Counterparty, I go over briefly. This one's called Folding Coin. What they do is there's a project called Stanford at Home, which allows people to dedicate some of their computational power to basically simulating the folding of proteins for medical research. What they do, they're not related to that project, but they create a token where if you dedicate your power to it, they'll distribute you their token like as a reward. And that's gotten a market price. Basically they become I think like a third or something like that of all the processing power for that medical research. This one's called Spells from 2014. They are a trading card game that was ahead of their time. If you heard of CryptoKitties, they keep saying, we're the first crypto club collectible, we're the first crypto collectible. This is the first crypto collectible. Rare Pepe, I don't know if you heard of Rare Pepe. Rare Pepe was a big boon for Counterparty actually. It was one of the first major uses of the DEX and demonstration of the permissionlessness of the network. These are controversial, yet they trade it anyways. And what's happening here, you see these images? So basically this is like a thing that happens maybe more in New York City than Atlanta, but there's this like crypto art movement. And the idea is that like you take an image or an artwork and you declare as the artist that this token is part and parcel of my art. And if you don't have both, you don't have my art. That is not a technical claim, that's a social claim. And it's apparently working. This is I actually made myself a crypto game called Bitcoins. Take a meme, monetize it, why not? And it's the same thing, cards. I don't really like to shill it, but it exists. Like wants to shill it. We'll come back to that. Another thing to check out is Indie Square Wallet. This is actually one of the cooler things that just happened. Counterparty. And I'm looking for a crossover here in that their wallet now supports ERC20 tokens and Counterparty tokens in one wallet. Check that out. Those are some of the projects there. I'm kind of without more content, so. Oh, sure, yeah. Maybe I'll just register an asset real quick. I'm going to use, this is kind of a wallet here. This is a testnet, so it says 12 Bitcoins, but they're testnet Bitcoins. Don't rush the stage. Okay. And so this is a wallet here, and you can see that I have Bitcoin and I have Counterparty. And those two things together allow me to register assets. So I'm just going to create a token right now. And you don't have to be a developer to do this. You don't have to be savvy to do this. You just need to read the manual. I'm going to squat tab conf if I can. And then if you guys ever want to use it, you have to come to me and pay me Boku bucks. And so we have the tab conf, that's our token name, and just looking around the room, let's make one per person in the room. So there's 1,000 people in the room right now. That's crypto math. And so, so I just plug in, I want 1,000 of them. And I can decide to make it divisible or not, basically allow fractions or not, whole numbers or not whole numbers. You can add descriptions as well. Long story short, I press the button. That's now issued a transaction to the Bitcoin testnet. And so it's been sent off the Bitcoin blockchain. And it won't get added to the ledger until it's confirmed, read by the nodes, and then it updates the ledger. So every ledger change has to go through the blockchain. That's it.
So, so you have all your ledger nodes working on top of Bitcoin nodes, and they're obviously communicating with each other. Most updated ledger. So how is that not?
So it's a good question, and they don't actually talk directly to each other. Like I said, there's no peer-to-peer network. We're using the Bitcoin network,
Oh.
but they're not actually connected. They might be randomly, but I'm just like broadcasting transaction. There's a thing that exists in espionage, where they call them listening stations or number stations, if that's heard of these. Basically, there are stations that will be broadcasting music, to anyone. Then randomly, they'll start broadcasting like numbers. And so everyone's receiving those numbers. Only the people that know the protocol are like tuned in and have meaning from it. And that's one way I think. Does that help?
Yeah, and they all verify that.
Yes. Right. We use Bitcoin for its transaction ordering. So as long as we're all, and this is an issue with it for sure. As long as it relies on us all running the same software. Like you have to, all the nodes, like you could be running different versions of the software, but like backwards compatibility is a big important thing. So it's just easier to fork than a blockchain would be because there is no mining. So these are trade-offs, but these are trade-offs for sure. That was very clever. He said there's a little bit of counterparty risk. All right, so I'm just going to check. Maybe this is by the way, this is like the DEX. These are just like this is not like Poloniex. There's no central actor here. This is just in trade. It looks like it probably hasn't confirmed yet, but that's the test net for you.
Let me go ahead and show the other websites, some of the other things.
Yeah, it's fine. So I made this thing called Bitcoins, and I take it about as seriously as the name sounds. But basically, what Bitcoins is I'm using Counterparty tokens to make a game. There's this like movement to like maybe do like crypto games. I don't know if you've seen this, and this is how I shot at it. And it's optimized for like minimal use of the blockchain. But basically, each one of these farms has a Bitcoin address, and people like they buy a certain token called crops. That gives them a farm, and then this person has made their farm called Best Korea Farm. They've updated the art to reflect that. It's a little irreverent, it might be offensive to some people, I'm sorry about that. They've located it in Pyongyang, and they got some dry as a bone here. This is an interesting thing we're trying here, is everyone received this card here, which is an asset, so everyone's got a balance of this. My software just kind of like sees they have a balance, displays the card. Yes, that's centralized, but it's a game, it's not. It's a game. What's cool about this, though, is that every 3 months or so, we have what's called a harvest. So people with crops get Bitcoin, ideas get the most Bitcoin, whatever. But if you have the most dry as a bone at harvest time, you don't benefit from the harvest. And so you can see here, this guy, he's not going to benefit. He's dry as a bone. And you might wonder why this guy isn't dry as a bone. We can inspect his farm and see that he's got a forever moist, which is a very rare protection. So dry as a bone doesn't hurt him because he has a forever moist. So there's forever moist. It's a very rare card. There's only 3 of them in existence. Because each one is burned, at least one of them. This is Farm Cat. How do you get forever moist? Well, you need a lot of Bitcoin. And I'm told the harder the Bitcoin, the more moist. And so here's some other cards. Oh, this is actually interesting. Here's one more. And this is one of the benefits of Counterparty is that because it's a simple standard, there's also like cross-pollination of assets. So this one here, called Battle Corn, if you have one of those, I made an API, and somebody went and made Bitcoin Battle, which is kind of fun. They made a site where you can battle with your farms.
And do you know who built on top of your? Do you know who built this? Or Or is this just a random person?
No, he contacted me about it. But he made a site where you can battle with them, and there's like a leaderboard, and it's just fun. Like, one of the cool things about, I'm skeptical, but I think it's interesting, these uses. I'd like to see these things used for like real deal finance, but I think these are the things we'll settle for at this point in all the adoption curve. I think we have a long way to go on that. But I'm happy to see use cases like this kind of played around with.
Just curious, what future use cases do you really think are going to take off after these initial kind of games get proven out, and maybe bugs are found or whatever? And then what do you think is really going to be used in the industry?
Specific to Counterparty, I think what it's good for is representations of like equity or ownership, like things that are like, I wouldn't make a cryptocurrency with Counterparty. Like, I wouldn't try to make another currency on top of Bitcoin. I think it would be better to have like representations of ownership, like shares, or these items, for example, that aren't traded that often, like not high frequency trade, because of the fees and things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
But I think what would be cool is, say you had in the future, or even now, if you have a business that operates in like your revenue is denominated in Bitcoin, you could have members of the business holding an equity token, and you could issue dividends to those holders from your Bitcoin revenue, for example. I think things like that will happen in the future. It'd be great. That would be like dividends on it.
You have a question?
So, based on what you just said, could you effectively turn it into a ticket master? If I'm Taylor Swift, I want to issue 1,000 tickets to a concert, people could purchase those tickets.
Yeah, you have like a specialized wallet, it could be like barcode, like yeah, the balance is there. Cool, yeah, you do that. I don't know if it's a good use, but like you could maybe, yeah. This use I showed you is like an intentionally ridiculous use. And often blockchain doesn't fit into most business models, but that might change over time.
So we're just talking, and I read somewhere that the first wheel ever found was from the child's spirit. And so from if you want to always first. So, and then so in this case, it was telling, going back to the art, it's interesting because, especially with artwork, to have physical artwork associated with the artist makes that artwork all the more. If that artist makes it big, nice, then that ownership is greater. It also reinforces the provenance of the. Imagine, fast forward, the value of currency, coin, asset along with glass art, something. Right?
Sure.
That's the use case.
I go to live in New York City, and these artists do see what they can learn and stuff like that. But in general, if something is occurring in the real world or in space, you might say, it's very hard to, just because something's in a blockchain doesn't mean it's truthful. You can cook the books on the blockchain as well. So like, for example, say I have a physical piece of art. Who's to say I'm actually the person that did that, and then if somebody steals the token, but not the physical art, what happens there? These are complicated subjects.
So you just made the commons token.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So if someone dies, keys are gone. Like that's gone. So is there like a counterpart way to step in, say like ceased or something, where
Yeah.
there's been
Yeah. I mean, you need the private keys to come with private keys. Yeah. It's a good, it's a good, it's a good question. I'm just, not as part of the protocol, man. It's an interesting thing, but, I mean, there's, vaults in Bitcoin that people have, like, theorized or whatever. For Bitcoin vaults or something like that, where you can, if it's stolen, you can kind of.
So just to follow up on that, is there a concept of like mnemonic speed phrases for backups?
Oh, for sure. When I logged in to register that thing, I used a passphrase. Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Oh, yeah.
just what's the biggest vulnerability to counter?
Okay, it's hard to rank like that, but some of the issues with this form of consensus, we were talking earlier about the counterparty risk or the context of work. I wouldn't call it counterparty risk, but it was just to jog your memory about that point. I think the best demonstration of where these fail, not counterparties itself, but with Omni, is that there was a moment, I think last year, where Tether issued 30 million more tokens than they intended to. And they were like, crap, we didn't need to issue. You guys remember this? They issued 30 more million than they intended to. And so what Tether did at that point is they created a patch to the software and they pushed it to the exchanges. They said like, okay, exchanges run this patch. And then the Omni Foundation, which are ostensibly the stewards of the code, were like, yeah, we'll also go with that patch. But that is an example of like somebody who was a large economic actor who potentially, whereas we saw with Bitcoin, even with lots of companies pushing for different changes, it's resistant. So I see these technologies and counterparty as useful, interesting, but will fail at certain levels of adoption. But for games right now, for tickets right now, everything fails to scale until it does. Come on.
Before we end, we're going to have Chris raffle off hardware. So make sure you look at your ticket. And if you have any more questions, I'm sorry I didn't get to you or anybody else. We're going to talk more at Twin Peaks after this. So make sure before you leave, pick up your garbage and then throw that away. And we'll see you at Twin Peaks. Okay? And Chris is going to announce the raffle right now. Yeah, Mike. Test it. Just turn it on. No, you have to wait a second. Is it good? All right, can you hear me okay? All right. Hey everybody, my name is Chris Winters. I'm the founder of Protecting Coin. We are your source for cryptocurrency hardware, so hardware wallets, cold storage devices, accessories.